Hi, I'm Kelly Kearney with Starry Constellation Magazine, and with me today we have a real treat to talk about the highly anticipated second and unfortunately final season of The Sandman. Actor, please welcome actor Ferdinand Ferdy Kingsley. Thank you so much for
Good.
talking with me today.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. It's really a treat.
Absolutely. You know, fans love your character. You play Hob Gadling, who
Mm.
was kind of the most human character in the world of gods and dreams and nightmares. What drew you to the role?
I thought it was completely. I mean, I would have been insane to have not been drawn to it. It's one of those parts that come along almost never in your career, where you get to sort of play seven parts in one and have a through line through them. There's no rule as to how to play him because he has a consistency in his core that's always him. But then he adapts to the times or doesn't, and there's a total joy and a freedom in finding a character that doesn't feel confined by either by the context that he's in or by a sort of physical appearance. It's a dream basically. It's my entire show reel in one job.
Well, Neil Gaiman, who wrote the book, the world that he creates is sort of dense with myth and metaphor. Were you familiar with the books before signing on to the role?
I was sort of atmospherically familiar, if you know what I mean. My brother had the magazines when I was little, the comics. So I knew the outline of it, and my brother had also, he was a huge fan when he was a teenager, and I'm 5.5 years younger than him. And he had a painting of Dream on his guitar that he
Mm.
did. In what we call Tipex, like corrector fluid. And so it was too grown up for me, but I knew the sort of, like I say, the atmosphere, the flavor of it when I was very little. And then as a teenager myself, sort of got a bit more familiar. And then when the series came around, that, obviously brought up a load of conversations between me and my brother, what I remembered about what I remembered as a little un. And his obsession with it, he's all his like teenage drawings of death and various members of the Endless, and I initially auditioned for Dream, or I just did a tape for Dream, and so that was something that spurred me to re-familiarize myself with it really. And then when Hob came up, I remember thinking, now that's a name that feels familiar. I couldn't remember exactly who he was, and then and then as soon as I told my brother, he was like, "No, that's the Season of Mists guy. He's the guy that does the toast." And I was like, "Oh, that's the toast that you like know off by heart." And then of course I completely fell back in love with it, and the process of sort of chopping up editions of the comics to stick in my script was actor's dream, especially during lockdown. I had a lot of spare time.
Yeah, and I'm sure your brother was over the moon that you were going to be
He was.
starring this because it was also my favorite comic when I was growing up as a
Oh yeah.
teenager, and so I was so excited about seeing the series. And of course, it met every one of my needs from first season, and second season is great as well.
Yeah, it's
So I'd
fantastic.
imagine your brother was over the moon that you were going to be diving into this world.
He really was. I mean, like I say, he immediately. I told him I was playing it. He did the famous Season of Mist speech to me. Um, but then we don't sort of, apart from saying great work, I'm proud of you, tell me more about the job, and tell me if anyone's a meanie. We tend not to get too involved in each other's business, if you know what I mean. We just say,
Yeah.
that's fantastic. Now, what time are we picking up your kids from school? Stuff like that.
Did you
I
model
rarely pick up
your
his kids from school.
did you model your version of Hob kind of off of the books, or did you have maybe some inspiration elsewhere that you infused into him?
Do you know what? I feel like he, as a character, is written with such a he's written with such a voice. It's an
Right.
obvious thing to say, but he really is. He's got a real cadence, a real rhythm, um, that I found really easy to get into. I found, and also that thing that can happen with good comic book writing, where the shape of it on the page can inform you. You know, the italicized words and the bold words and the underlined words. They're there to help the reader, and they really help the actor, because you know you can sometimes agonize about what did the author, what did the writer intend for me to land on in this line? What did they intend for me to emphasize? What, you know, where's the single, where's the center of gravity of this line? And a lot of the times in a visual medium like that, it's there for you. You know, it's
Right.
So I found it really easy, and I think actually. I suspect that one of the things that helped me get the job might have been a typo on the casting breakdown that went out to actors, because it said when I got it, you know, a breakdown usually says what accent they'd like you to prepare it in,
Right.
and it said to prepare it in RP, you know, received pronunciation, but posh English, BBC English, and I thought, well, no, I don't think that's right. You know,
It's a very polished accent.
yeah, it's more or less what I talk with normally, a slightly heightened version. And I thought, I just don't think that's right. That's not how I read Hob. He's not that guy, and that's the essence of him, is that he's not that guy. He's a peasant in a tavern. And as actors, we're sort of we're quite obedient. We tend to, you know, we fear getting things wrong a lot, because you know, getting a job is such a lottery anyway. So you try to avoid all the things that are going to make it less likely that you get the job. But I thought on this one, I was like, no, I just it's a tiny, it's not disobeying. It's not much of a you know, a protest or a revolution. It's just me doing a very slightly different accent. But I thought there's probably loads of way better actors than me who did what they were told on that tape, and it wasn't quite right. But then, for whatever reason, it just the voice and the attitude of him seemed to come quite easily, to be honest.
Yeah,
quite
I mean, I think
quite comfortably anyway. I found him. He's a really, for someone who is so complicated and lives so long, he's a very easy person to inhabit.
well, that's the thing. He does live for eternity, centuries, centuries, eternity. When you were approaching the role, did that play a part in how you put him together? That he has this vast experience over longer than, well, as long as Dream basically has been around, almost. Did you really have that idea when you were putting him together?
I did. I mean, I think that's what he is. What defines him is how much he does and doesn't change. They're the sort of, you know, the axes of his personality, of his character, is what changes and what doesn't. And that's sort of part of the experiment for Dream when creating the immortality that is Hob Gadling. And for the actor, that's the through line for you. That's there's something really fun and joyous about going, no, that bit of him never changes, but that bit does, and that bit he resents, and that bit he feels huge amounts of guilt about. And they give you instant tension as an actor, which is what you want. You want to need something, you want an objective, and you want something stopping you from getting it, the obstacle. And that really helped. I also think, I was going to say something really interesting, but I've forgotten what it was. Hang on, wait a second. I will think of something incredibly profound any second now. Oh, he's an observer. That's what I was going to say, right? So that really that does some of the work for you, because what we see of Hob in the show is what he sees of the content of the show, if that makes any sense. You know,
sure, absolutely.
He doesn't know what he doesn't know. He knows what's in front of him, and what we see is what's in front of him as pertains to the world of the Sandman and its characters. So Hob can be as amazed and confused and overwhelmed and unknowing as we want him to be, and we can project ourselves onto him as the audience for that reason, I think.
Yeah, that's what I always saw him as, is kind of the window to the audience a little bit. If
Hmm.
it, we kind of put ourselves in his shoes, there's like a subtle emotional arc to him. He starts off like cocky and carefree, but then he ends up a little bit wiser, a little more generous, a little less angsty, and still deeply lonely, in my
Yeah,
opinion. In
yeah,
what ways were you able to track that transformation of your performance? Because the timeline is so vast. Did you
it
have
is.
like direction in a way that you kind of know what came before, know what came after? Because oftentimes you're just jumping into scenes.
Yeah, you are. But I mean, a lot of that, in the first season in particular, we shot it almost chronologically, not quite,
Um,
but pretty much. They had two copies of the tavern set back to back. We were shooting on one, and they'd be building the one for the next century next door, and then we'd go and shoot on that, and then they would set up with it. So it was quite easy in that, and obviously I had to fill in. There's a century to fill in between each one.
right,
But I have, it's really fun to contextualize it and know, right, what's going on politically, what's been going on, what's, where's this money come from, where's this money gone. You do that work, but there's no point. There's no point acting that work. You've got to do it so that you know who you are and where you've come from, but the audience don't need to see you sort of doing your Wikipedia performance.
right.
Tempting though it is to sort of play the research. For season two, it's much more compressed. I mean, how much of season two have you seen?
So I've seen the first six, obviously, and then the last six will come at the end of the month. So
Yeah,
I've seen, you in the very small clips,
yeah,
so
yeah,
far this
yeah.
season.
There's the whole of the season is much more compressed, as I'm sure you can guess.
Yeah.
And Hobbs' journey on it only takes place over a matter of weeks, really. Um, and it's much smaller and more intimate. I mean, I know that the main bit you've seen is a dream sequence with a sort of not flashback, but a historical chronological
Hmm.
flashback in his mind, with, if I might add, the incredible actor Kirsty Besterman, who played Queen Elizabeth, having
Yes,
only,
Queen Elizabeth. That was such a delightful pop
I
in.
know, and she's only got one line in it, but Kirsty is one of the best actors out there. It's crazy. She's fantastic. And yes, sorry, it's Hobbs' arc is a lot more intimate, domestic, internal. He's less this season. He's less about the sort of big proclamations about mankind and what it is to be observing the ages go past, and comments on the politics of the day. It's much more about the journey that he's on, as a sort of weirdly as a parallel to the journey that Dream's on as well.
Right.
Dream has to go inside himself and face some things, and face the prospect of, well, have literally existential conversations with himself. So does Hob. I think uh, it is a very lonely existence, living forever. I think. I mean, you can meet everyone, but you will outlast everyone, and that's you have the agony of that thing that they say, no parent should outlive their child, is the is the natural order of things. Um,
And there's a
and he
loneliness,
has
not
that
just in
over and over
him.
and over again. Yeah,
Yeah, and there's a loneliness not just in him, but in Dream too. Those two characters mirror each other so
they
well.
absolutely do. They
Yeah,
absolutely
they
do.
absolutely do. Because even
And they can
though,
confide in one another in a way that they can't with anyone else.
right, they know each other.
Dream
They know
elevates
each
Hob
other's
into the.
struggles.
Sorry, I'm so sorry I talked over you. I got
Oh no, go
overexcited by
ahead.
my own opinions. Dream elevates Hob into the higher, into the Higher, into the higher cosmic realms, and Hob grounds Dream in the human realm.
Yeah.
And there's a sort of magnetism there, and a light and shade that pull against each other and push, and that's great.
Yeah, I think the fans love watching that friendship because it's so layered and it can be taken. art is in the eye of the beholder. So it can be taken in any way that you project yourself into that friendship.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a form of love. It doesn't have to be romantic love. It doesn't have to be sexual love. It's a connection that is undeniable and that is unique and that is irreplaceable. And therefore there is a love between them, and it's so easy to want to go, oh, but if they're in love, then it must mean that they want to be a couple.
Right.
It doesn't have to mean that at all. It can mean that these are two people who, by the very nature of their existence, know one another better than anyone else could possibly know them, and that, in a way, is a form of love.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's knowing someone. Love is knowing someone, so it's that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like you said, it doesn't have to be that way, but it doesn't also not have to be that way. When fans watch things, they really take in those emotions of those characters, and they protect themselves a little bit, and
As they
what
should.
that means to them.
Yeah, as we should. We all project ourselves on. I mean, what's the point of art if we
Right.
don't? If we don't in some way project ourselves onto what we're watching and go, what would I do if I were that person in that situation? What would I feel? And what does that person's existence in front of me on a screen tell me about myself? That's kind of the point, I think,
The point.
of
Yeah.
anything. Big or small, fantasy, drama, anything. It's all there to sort of, as it were, hold a mirror up to ourselves in some way.
Yeah, we kind of learn a little bit about ourselves in the same way
Mm-hmm.
that Dream learns a little bit about himself from Hob,
You'd hope
and
so.
vice
It takes
versa.
him a
We're
while
all
to
sort
learn.
of like checking into our own humanity a little bit and what it means to live in this universe with those
Quite.
characters. Speaking of Dream, we talked about the friendship, the bond. You have an incredible chemistry with the actor who plays Dream, Tom Sturridge. Who talk about yours and Tom's approach to the dynamic between Hob and Morpheus, especially the kind of slower shifts from like this experimental, angsty relationship in the beginning to where it's gone now into season 2.
Um, it's quite simple because the script has helped us so much. I'd be lying if I said I know Tom extremely well outside of work. I know him at work, and I know him from a couple of things we've hung out at, outside of work, and I think he's fantastic and a really, really great guy. But what you were seeing in season 1 was us not knowing each other really at all, and so we really were two guys sitting in a pub, sounding each other out, working out what was in front of us. That was happening between two actors, I guess, in a way.
Right.
Which is great. And also the circumstances we were filming under, slap bang in the middle of COVID, meant that it was a slightly different film set or TV set to normal. We were much more isolated. We were behind big old masks, not just the little face masks, big plastic masks. We were kept separate until we needed to come in on set, and then there were far fewer people on set. So we would quite often find ourselves just with a couple of minutes before action, really, to have a chin wag, get a sense of who the person sitting opposite us was. There's always that thing when you're with an actor of like, what's it actually going to be like when between action and cut? What's it going to be like when we're holding eye contact and talking very quietly and intimately to one another? Can I connect to this person? Obviously we could. And also Tom had been rehearsing like mad and getting up at 3-4 in the morning to come in, and so we'd met a couple of times before that. When it got to season 2, the whole experience of season 2 was strange and disjointed because it was so long. It was much longer after season 1 than it was meant to be.
Right.
Because we went on strike. We went on strike. Well, there was the writer's strike and the actor's strike. And so something like a week had been shot, if that, before the strike happened. Of season 2. And then we shut down for months and months and months. And I hadn't shot anything. Or had I? No, I hadn't shot anything. But it did mean that everything was so much so broken apart, and they managed to keep hold of as pretty much all the crew. But it
And
felt much
director
more,
Jamie Childs.
and Jamie, yeah,
Yeah.
and it was much more disjointed as a result of that. But Jamie was a total through line, as as you can tell. It's really rare that you get the same director for an entire series.
Yeah.
So he becomes, and him with Alan Heinberg as well, and who is a complete ever present and has the sort of show Bible in his head, ready to contextualize absolutely every syllable. It was strange for me because there were months between me coming in, months and months and months between me coming in and doing my bits, which as a person was quite saddening because I felt like I wasn't as much part of it as I wanted to be. Lots of us felt, it's that's the nature of it. But as an actor, it was quite interesting because I would go away, come back, and they'd be so deep into the story, and so much stuff will have happened before another scene that I'm doing that I'll have to be like, obviously Hob doesn't know what's going on in the scene where
Right.
I'm referring mostly to stuff that's not been on screen yet, but there's stuff that Hob doesn't know, but I see it in the other actor's face that he's lived through this. I see it in Tom's eyes, and Hob is in some of those scenes trying to work out what's going on, even though he won't tell him. So it's just very strange and interesting as a sort of acting process to have huge swathes of story happen between your filming dates, really. I mean, I think it was the best part. It was about 7 months, I think, between first and last episode for me.
Oh
But
wow.
but the dates that we were meant to, the outside dates that I was sort of in the headspace of being ready to do it were over a year. We were meant to have started a lot earlier. So it was strange, but kind of wonderful.
Kind of wonderful. Well, let's talk about Dream and his influences, because I feel like he is influenced by this friendship. Certainly, some of the decisions that he makes, he's kind of gained this great insight, like we were talking about humans,
Yeah.
and Hobb certainly has that insight from his observation over the centuries. How will this friendship play a part in Dream's choices towards the end of this season, without spoiling anything, obviously?
Um, it's hard to answer that without spoiling things. I think uh, the balance of what's spoken and what's unspoken between these two is always really important. It has been from the very beginning. I think with what's coming in the second half of the season, that will be explored more. The idea of confidence, not the bravery form of confidence, but having a confidant, someone to confide in, will be very important. We see both of them in moments of extremis and vulnerability. Without wanting to get too granular, Hob is in quite a dark place himself later in the season. Anyone who's read the comics will probably know that. And I don't think there's all that much more I can say without tackling some of the climactic moments of the show. Hob will also. What does it? Hob will know. Hob will know more than he has ever known. Hob will see more than he's seen. He'll sort of take a peek behind the curtain, and some aspects of the different worlds will bleed into one another, and I think that's probably
The
the
best
most
you can do, especially
the most I should say without it's not like, ooh, I'm not allowed to say anything. It's more like it's just so much fun to watch stuff unfold, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, absolutely. And for fans who haven't read the book, you guys are in for a treat, I think,
Yeah.
for the last 6 episodes.
Yeah, I mean, we
You,
kind of have to gallop through. There's a lot in the intervening sets of books that would have been so wonderful to have filmed and would have added depth to the arc. But I think as a complete arc in itself, what the writers and the actors and the producers and the whole, like, my God, the crew are some of the most amazing professionals I've
the
ever
cast,
come
the
across.
crew.
Yeah, I mean, that world building is absolutely bonkers. They are unbelievably talented, the crew, or every department. But what they've created in terms of depth, considering how much we have to gallop through plot-wise, is really laudable. It's really, really, really to be praised and admired.
Well, obviously, you're not going to be able to get through all the stories in the last 6 episodes. And that's
No.
unfortunate, but you do the best that you can with what you have. Hob, he has a lot of story left in the comics. Are you able to tease maybe what you would have liked to have explored with this character had there been
Sure.
another season?
I mean, I think I said this when we first released the show. I would have loved to have done the Leviathan. Hobbs Leviathan would have been amazing.
Yeah.
But to film that probably would have bankrupted both Netflix and Warner Brothers and DC Studios. It's not a cheap one to film, that one. But I think that's an incredibly not only is it a sort of action-filled romp, it's also an amazing edition of the comic that explores gender and identity and secrecy and trying to live a whole life, as in a big life. And I would have loved it. It does not drive the main plot of the show, so I totally understand why, like many of the other side quests.
Yes, if there had been a standalone hour, maybe, or maybe
Yeah,
longer, because
exactly.
Leviathan is a kind of big story there.
It's a big story, and the Jim character. There's some amazing themes explored in it that I would have loved to have played with. But I also cannot complain. I have to be happy with my lot because I love this character and I love having played it, and I love the actors that I've got to encounter along the way.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We'll have to talk about the actors in 1 minute, but I wanted to ask, thinking back across the 2 seasons, and I just have to think about how he has lived all of this time. He's lived through plagues. He's lived through wars. Is there a particular time period that you really had hoped besides Leviathan, that you really hoped you could tackle with Hob in the story?
What, that we didn't get to?
Yeah, that you didn't get to. Or maybe possibly that you had in the first season or this season, and that was your favorite.
Yeah, I mean, the fun thing is that we did, in some way, we tapped on all of them. I just would have. I mean, this is just impossible. I just would have loved to have lived some of the lives that he talks about. But we just have to imagine them, and they're not even in the comics, half of them. I'm just talking about, the stories that Hob tells, the things he must have seen. That would be the greatest adventure as an actor of a lifetime, to be able to play or to explore all them. That's just physically not possible.
Yeah.
I think it would be Hob. I think Hob now is really interesting. Hob at the end of the story is a really interesting character, and I think we did explore it a little bit. But as I say, there's a lot of stories that needed tying up, so they can't have half an hour each. But I just explore some of them in my head, really, because no actor's ever going to get to play 700 years
100 years.
in granular detail of a character, but it would have been fun, wouldn't it?
It would have been fun. We talked about the cast, the crew, amazing. The cast is like a who's who of talented
Oh, it's
actors. It's
bonkers.
really
It's
just
bonkers. And the actors you got in doing, a day or something, some absolutely ludicrously talented actor doing a tiny bit here and there. It's just, my goodness, I'm a lucky boy.
well, poor Hob. He kind of spends most of his time. Nothing against Tom and Dream. He spends a lot of his time with Tom and Dream. He doesn't get to spend his time kind of acting off, or you getting to act off some of the other characters in the series. Is there someone in the series that you would have loved to play a scene with that you didn't get a chance to?
Oh, there's loads. I mean, I've also got to shout out Sophie Hopkins, who played Audrey, my wife in it, my partner.
Yes, of
In the
course.
show. It's a criminally small part, and she is a fantastic actor and great human. And the show is crawling with actors who were sort of, in the best possible way, overqualified for the parts they were playing. So you get, like I said, you get like sensational actors with 1-2 lines. I got to play with Jenna a little bit, didn't I? I again don't want to be talking too much about the end of the second half of the series, but there are a few that Hob gets to meet in passing. But a lot of them are. I mean, all of the Endless would have been fabulous to have hung out with.
Lucifer.
Yeah. Do you know what? I never got to meet Gwendolyn.
Wow, what amazing she is.
Oh, she's incredible. I got to meet a lot of. It was like a sort of strange school at the end at wherever we were, Shepperton Studios and various locations of even if I wasn't in scenes with actors, we'd start to be crossing paths, and then you go, oh God, I wish we had some stuff together. Like Vivian has become a really good mate of mine. We got bugger all together for 99% of this show, but she's become a good pal, and then we'd just be having dinner together. So I'm completely in love with Sanjeev Bhaskar. He's my hero, always has been. I found a cinema ticket from the premiere of American Beauty, which obviously I did not go to because I was, what year is it, 99, 98?
I think it might have been 97, maybe, or 98.
So
yeah.
I was somewhere between about 9 and 11. But I was an obsessive fan of the show Goodness Gracious Me that Sanjeev was in the 90s. Amazing comedy. My dad and I loved it. We used to watch it on VHS. And my dad went to the premiere of American Beauty and sat next to Sanjeev. And I was going through a box of stuff in my mum's garage a few months ago, and I found this ticket to the premiere, and it had been signed to Dear Ferdinand, Kiss My Chuddies, matey, loads of love from Sanjeev. And I remember as a kid, I was like, this is the coolest guy in the world. My dad had got him to sign this ticket. And then to be working with him now, oh my God, it's just it's a little me would be very, very proud and pleased. And obviously the second I found it, I texted it to Sanjeev, and he was like, oh, I remember that day your dad said that he had a son who liked the show. Like,
he remembered. That's amazing.
Well, they sat next to each other, so I think, he probably remembered, he probably remembered the day.
That's amazing.
There are amazing people. It's crazy to think down the list of Boyd and Kirby and Barry. I met Barry for about 3 seconds. Freddie, I didn't see it. Freddie Fox, I didn't see it.
Jack Gleason was this season?
Yeah. Freddie was the year below me at drama school, but I didn't see him on set. But, again, champagne casting. I like to feel like I've had a scene with Steve Coogan, even though
because Barnabas.
he's just a voice. It's fabulous. It's great.
Yeah, I love that. I love the talking dog. I love that guy.
And the actual dog was incredible. I can't remember his name. It's driving me mad. I will remember, but it was the definition of a good dog.
Definition of a good dog. In my opinion, all dogs are good dogs.
They are. This is a capital G, capital D, good dog.
Absolutely. So, I have to say that Hob, his love of life with all the heartbreak and the longevity of it, what do you think the Sandman is saying about mortality and the value of human experience through his character?
I think Hob is saying that life is worth it on a very, very simple level. That the desire to carry on is a choice every day. It's one of the biggest. It is the biggest choice anyone can make, and there is a bravery in continuing, and there's an understanding of the desire to jack it all in. I think, despite actually, it seems counterintuitive considering that he does have this sort of on paper immortality, but I think he's actually saying that life is precious, because what he's taken for granted through his cockiness at the beginning and is like, right, well, if I live together, I can use it to make loads of money. Basically, I'll take advantage of the joys of compound interest to get the world's best pension. But I think counter to that, seeing people come and go and seeing how fragile life is, teaches him about the importance of now, the importance of the moment, the importance of tomorrow. And this is a theme in a lot of sort of philosophical writing and a lot of game and writing of, the idea of someone lives for as long as they're remembered. And actually, I think that is a very, very profound and important life lesson. That's the old, you die two deaths, one when you die and one when the last person forgets you. I think the character teaches us about, like I said before, the capacity to change and grow and learn, and your duty to do that if you have the privilege to live long enough to make mistakes.
Right. Right.
And to survive them, then you have an obligation to become a better version of what you were yesterday. It teaches us about I think that's quite a lot to have taught us about. It teaches us about the simplicity, the power of simple connection, of letting people see you and know you, and this is very hard for Hob, to let people know him, because he knows he's going to outlive them all. So there's a choice he has to make there of becoming vulnerable and intimate, knowing that it has to end by default because they will die before he does. And on a really big level, that's the choice we make when we, you and I were talking about dogs. It's the choice we make when we get an animal. On a really, absolutely, on a much, much smaller, I guess, level. It's pretty enormous for me, but you know that if things go to plan, you're going to watch this thing grow old and pass away. But that's not a reason not to do it.
Yes.
Right?
That's so, yeah. And then the memory part.
Yes.
That's such a huge part.
It's tempting to think, well, if this thing's going to go away eventually anyway, if this relationship's going to end, if this person's going to die, if this animal's going to die, then what's the point in caring?
Right.
Well, the upshot of that is that if you don't let yourself care, then you haven't lived, and then what's the point of having existed in physical form? So it's knowing that something's going to go away, and loving it anyway. And he's had to do that with the relationships in his life, with his memories, as you say. And so the closest analogy I've got right here is our beloved animals.
Yeah, and I think you nailed one of the themes this season is being remembered when you're gone. It was talked about in the Shakespeare episode, and Queen
Yep,
Titania.
yep,
She
yep,
she embraced the idea of being remembered
yep.
beyond her life and beyond the mortals that were watching the play at that moment. It was going to be forever. I think
Absolutely.
that was a really profound
And
theme this season.
and also in the sort of the bits that Dream tries not to remember, which he
Right.
has to. His relationships with and his with and Orpheus. The things that he's pushed down and repressed, and you can't escape what you are and what you've done in this world. Really, you can try, but again, live long enough and it will come back round. Even
It's
even
true.
if it just takes the form of suddenly in your 60s or 70s, something that you tried to hide behind your ear, coming and going, hello, hello, we didn't deal with
Hmm.
that.
Hmm. Yeah, life has a way of reminding you that it's always just right behind you, and you
Yeah,
can't really run from it as much
yeah.
as you want to try.
There was
What's next for
a
you?
great note that, sorry to interrupt you, a great
No,
note
yeah.
that a director called Joe Blatchley gave me. Well, gave all of us at drama school, but especially he when he was directing me, and I was this very keen, green, wide-eyed, like desperate to please student actor, like not really, saying, "Oh, I'll get down and dirty with this character and stuff," but actually just kind of keeping it on the surface. And he would always try and chip away at that, and he said, "Don't don't get rid of all this 'get behind me, Satan' crap. Don't get beside me, Satan, so I can keep an eye on you." He's like,
An eye on you.
you don't try and you can't run from your shadow. Get to know it, and I try.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. Like you said, you can run from your life, but sooner or later, it taps you on the shoulder, and it's like, hey,
Exactly.
come a thing.
You
That's
can
how it
jump
kind of.
pretty high in the sky, and when you have to land and meet that shadow eventually.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what's next for you, Ferdy? Are you working on any other projects we can keep an eye out for?
Am I working on anything that isn't? Well, I have just filmed something which they haven't announced me in yet, so I can't say what it is. But it's another comic book adaptation. It's a film.
Hmm.
It's
Oh,
nice, not an enormous part, but it's a really good project. And that is all I can actually say.
talk about right
Even
now.
when you're not, yeah, well, even when you're not like officially doing stuff, you have to sign your life away, saying if I raise an eyebrow when someone says the name of this project, then you are allowed to cut that eyebrow off and kill me on the spot. So no is the answer. But yeah, no, I shot something earlier in the year, which will be a while before it comes out, and it's not um, I'm by no means driving the the story itself, but it was a really cool project.
Oh, I can't wait to see what that is. I'm excited. I'm intrigued to see what that is. What would you like to say to the fans of the book, the series, and now you and your work?
I'd like to say, obviously, thank you for sticking with, bearing with, and for any time I've met any of the people who for whom this show and the books have meant a lot. Um, it's been a really it's been an incredible experience because I've seen, as we were talking about earlier, just how much we do project ourselves into these things, and it's really given me um, well, it's boosted my faith in the power of story because uh, we allow people to explore stuff that they might not be able to, and especially on a show like this, which is a cast. The characters and the themes are on the fringes of
Mhm.
they're not mainstream. It's not to say that they are weird or alternative or anything. They are just not what we see in popular culture as generally. And to have those explored and amplified and championed is amazing in itself. Well, it's not amazing. It's important and it's great. But then to see the people for whom it has been important, who have seen themselves on screen or on the page, or who have felt braver because of it, or who have felt that they can live a more full life because they realize that they're not alone, or even just the simple thing of having that kind of precious ephemeral thing called fandom, you know, building community, which we need community right now. And realizing that, you know, where you may have thought you were a bit of a, you know, an outsider or a bit alone in what you care about and love, you're not. There's flipping tons of you out there, and to have been in something that has allowed people to connect like that has been a real privilege.
Well, this fandom has been around for a while. Since I was a teenager, we've loved this series. We love the television show. We're sad that it's over, but we look forward to the second half of it. I know I certainly do.